You do have that 3-game road trip, but the first two legs of it are against bad football teams. And I think, and I've said this on the show before the schedule even got released, I think the two NFC teams who have clearly foreshadowed we're not playing to win, we're rebuilding this thing, are the New York Giants and the Chicago Bears. And that's who they have on the first two legs of that road trip. And then they finish the season, week 18, with the New York Giants as well. So, you know, you got to take care of business there, Jody, with that particular team late in the season when they know they're bad and they're probably going to be more worried about draft picks than wins.
You got your Mac and Mac guys, McDonald and McMullen here with you on Birds 365. The day after the Eagles schedule is released, the entire National Football League schedule is released, which, oh, by the way, it started at 8 o'clock. They were teasing it all day on the NFL Network up until we had a couple of good leakages here on our show previous to. Johnny Mac's got a good source. Someone gave him the Eagles schedule back at the end of our show yesterday, and darn if he didn't hit it across the board. So that's when you got to put in your back pocket and go, okay, this is a good source. I can lean on them going forward. We've been breaking it down ever since, and we'll continue to do so. There are pluses, there are minuses. I think there are many more pluses than minuses to this schedule, and the fact that they finish out. I know they got that 3-game roadie, which people will complain about. I think I saw on the NFL Network yesterday, there's only 4 teams in the league that have 3 road games back to back in the league this year, and the Eagles are one of those 4 teams. But finishing at home with 2 in a row against the Saints and the Giants, yeah, John's favorite team, Mickey Loomis coming to town, week number 17. Not a bad way to finish off the season, John.
No, not at all. And one thing I say early, I always look at themes on schedules, Jody, more than wins and losses, because as Glenn pointed out, we don't know who's going to be healthy and on November 27th when Green Bay comes in, for example. But you can look at themes, and it's been a couple of years now where the Eagles have had these light schedules at the end of the season, and it's helped them. Let's be honest, it's helped them. And you do have that 3-game road trip, but the first two legs of it are against bad football teams. And I think, and I've said this on the show before the schedule even got released, I think the two NFC teams who have clearly foreshadowed we're not playing to win, we're rebuilding this thing, are the New York Giants and the Chicago Bears. And that's who they have on the first two legs of that road trip. And then they finish the season, week 18, with the New York Giants as well. So, you got to take care of business there, Jody, with that particular team late in the season when they know they're bad and they're probably going to be more worried about draft picks than wins. You got to take care of business. That shakes out very well for the Eagles. The one concern, obviously, is, as I mentioned with Glenn, Dallas on Christmas Eve. That's a difficult spot as the final game of that 3-game road trip.
All right, give me your take on this, because over the past 2 years, I have been woefully wrong about this. And it came from 35, 40 plus years of watching the NFL to formulate this belief. And then I was exactly wrong with it the last 2 years. New head coaches. It takes time to build a program. It takes time to take over. It takes time to get your culture in place and the like. Just 2 years ago, the entire NFC East overturned its coaches except the Philadelphia Eagles. Dougie P was the only one in place. He was the guy coming back. New Cowboy coach, new Giant coach, new Washington coach. Major advantage for the Philadelphia Eagles. 4-12.
Yeah.
That's not good. Last year, Eagles, the only team that changes their coach. Who's this Sirianni guy? Oh, my God. He was so nervous up there at the podium in his first press conference. This could be a nightmare. Eagles have a winning season and make the playoffs. So my long entrenched belief of it takes time, you're at a disadvantage when you got a new coach, kind of went by the wayside the last 2 years with what happened here in the NFC East. How big a deal is it across the NFL this year? Because I look at the Eagles' schedule. We had major turnover in the league. A lot of coaches got fired. There's a whole bunch of new coaches in this league. How big a deal is it in 2022?
I first of all, I'd like to say I used to agree with you. I used to, say, veteran coaches have a big advantage, especially over rookie head coaches. Not necessarily guys are getting a second chance, but rookie head coaches. Um, that sort of shifted in recent years.
Yes.
And I think part of it is what we always talk about with the Eagles and the offseason program and the shifts in preparation. Look, you only have a certain amount of time. And if you're worried about the lack of time to prepare and you're worried about getting young players up to speed because you don't have the time to prepare them, you're going to have issues. You got to find ways to get these guys on the field and utilize what they do well with the time you do have. And I think the younger coaches are more open minded with that kind of stuff, if that makes sense. I go back to Matt Nagy. I think he won 12 games his first year, and then he got progressively worse. Um, Matt LaFleur in the same division is just winning games, winning games, winning games. Now, a lot of that is tied to Aaron Rodgers, but I said, when he came into Green Bay, I was like, Matt LaFleur, well, he's got the most wins in NFL history over his first 3 years. Yeah, it's not the same anymore. So it's always interesting. Now, I called Nick Sirianni. I forgot who we had on the show. It might have been Glenn in a past appearance. I think it was. I said I called Nick Sirianni the best rookie head coach in the NFL. I thought he was last year. Some people say Brandon Staley. I thought it was Nick Sirianni. And Glenn said low bar. And he was right. It's probably a low bar last year. Last year's group wasn't that good. But I think, it depends on the year. It depends on the people. But I think there's more of an opportunity than ever for rookie head coaches to. I look at Minnesota week 2. Like I say, in theory, they're going to take a step back, right? They got a rookie head coach. They got a rookie general manager, kind of looked over match draft day.
Yeah, but I know he's a buddy of yours, but Zim was not good.
Well, that's what I mean. That's what I mean. So even if it's a small spike, people stop listening to Mike Zimmer. Not that he's a bad coach. Different generation, couldn't communicate. People stopped playing. Bottom line for him. They were tired of the hard ass mentality, tired of being treated the way they were being treated. Now you got the new age guy. They still have Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen, Kirk Cousins, Alvin Cook, all these playmakers, blah, blah, blah. That might be a team that actually gets better with a rookie head coach, at least for the short term, like Matt Nagy in Chicago. And then it got worse for Matt. So, yeah, I'm with you. It's not like it was.
Who do you like better, the new Minnesota coach or the new Miami coach? They're two rookie coaches coming out of the same, coming from the West Coast, two different programs, but both of them,
it's interesting,
guys.
I think, and I'm obviously in the minority. I think Kyle Shanahan's a better coach than Sean McVay. So that would lean me towards Mike McDaniel. However, if you force me, I would say Kevin O'Connell's going to be better. But all I base this on is Mike McDaniel comes across as too goofy for me. I mean, he just seems a little bit too wacky. I don't know if that translates to being a head coach in the NFL, but that's not exactly scientific. I think Mike was probably trained better because, other than Bill Belichick and Andy Reid, who I kind of put aside, I think the best coach in the NFL is Kyle Shanahan. That's my personal opinion.
And LaFleur is doing pretty well up there in Green Bay. But you're right. until Aaron Rodgers moves on, we won't really get a great read on LaFleur because we all believe it's Rodgers doing that they've been as good as they have been in the regular season. And yeah, you can judge a coach by the postseason, and LaFleur hasn't done enough there yet. So the story's yet to be written there. I like Glenn's point about if you look at the Eagles' schedule, who's the quarterback who scares you? The guy that, okay, this guy's coming to town, we're in trouble because this guy can win a game on his own. Is Rodgers really the only one?
Well, there's a couple. I think he downplayed. You have Kyler Murray, who's still, despite all the issues in the
Which, by the way, let
offseason
me
with
interrupt you right there. Will they work that out?
I think so.
Because he says he's not showing up at camp until they get a contract extension done. And I'd rather be playing them. Sorry to step on you again. Good thing to get them early in the season. If Murray holds out, not getting as much time as necessary, Hopkins still on a suspension because it's first 6 games and they play them first 4 weeks of the season. That was another plus of the Eagles schedule.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, what were they, 9-0 last year to start, and then they tend to people start to figure out Cliff Kingsbury. So I guess you can kind of look at it both ways. But he's a really talented guy. And I think he'll be on the field by that point. I think they'll work things out. And then, Dak Prescott's a good quarterback. I know Eagles fans don't want to hear that, but he's a good quarterback. And obviously he's on the schedule twice. But other than that, then it would be probably Kirk Cousins, who can, he can rip you. He might throw for 400 yards, but he'll find a way to lose the game. So, you might give up 400 yards passing, but,
How many years has Cousins been in Minnesota now? 3?
Be his 4th or 5th year. I'd have to look it up. But yeah, I mean, he's been, I often use Kirk as the example, and this is going back to Washington before Minnesota. This will be his 5th year at Minnesota.
So he's had 4. Okay.
Yeah. So here's Kirk Cousins, because I just pulled it up. And this starts in 2015 in Washington. 70% completion rate, 4,166 yards. 67%, 4,917 yards. 64%, bad year for him, 4,093 yards. 70%, 4,298 yards. 69%, 3,603, which is his low water mark, 3,603. 2020, 68%, 4,265. Last year, 66%, 4,221. I mean, that guy can sling the effing football, but they can't, they've had a bad offensive line, there's, and you brought up Mike Zimmer, old school coach. He's trying to flip the field. He's trying to play field position. So maybe Kevin O'Connell helps that team.
Could, but if you still have Cousins stats in front of you, I don't know if they've got this on the page you're looking at, but I saw it somewhere a couple of weeks ago. Since he got to Minnesota, he's like 32-32. Games that Kirk Cousins has started. He is
all time.
He is Mr. Dead middle of the pack quarterback. He is the definition of 500.
Even Steven. You don't have to say Minnesota. His career. Here's his career as a starting quarterback, Jody. 59, 59, and 2.
Yep.
But and then you talk about passer rating the last 3 years, 107.4, 105, 103.1. Only one quarterback better, Aaron Rodgers.
Right. If you've got over 100 quarterback ranking 3 years running, you're holding up your end of the bargain. But the teams that he's been on have had other issues and like, as does this one coming in. How much will Jalen Reagor be talked about after week 2 this year in the Eagles season, John?
Well, he's going to be talked about a lot. He might be gone. So, then it turns into a non-story. Well, it'll still be a story, but
Or if Jefferson catches 7 balls for 120 yards and 2 touchdowns, whether Jalen
uh,
Rager is here or not, we're going to be talking about
yeah,
it.
yeah. No, you're right. Yeah, and it'll be done because he probably won't be here. So you're right. It'll probably be week 2, and then never speak of Jalen Rager again until Justin Jefferson arrives down the road.
Yeah, were there rumors kicking around? Did I read an article yesterday that there were actual conversations about Jalen Rager being traded?
Yeah, but Chuck Clark on draft night. The Eagles were trying to. The Ravens do need a receiver, so the Eagles were trying to peddle that. I assume it was Jalen Rager and for
Yeah,
Chuck Clark.
what's the end?
Yeah,
That's what we got to know.
um,
Makes sense because I've been talking up Chuck Clark since the draft when they took
yeah,
Hamilton with the 14th pick. I said they got 3 starters now at safety. We're down one. It's a trade that makes sense. You're gonna have to do better than Jalen Rager.
yeah. Well, it didn't get done, so that tells you. I mean, you got to do better than Jalen Rager at this point. But I do think there will be somebody who trades for Jalen Rager at some point because somebody will talk themselves into, well, we like this kid coming out of the draft. I think one part of this revisionist history on Jalen Rager was that, the Eagles made this massive mistake. Somebody else was going to draft the kid pretty quickly. I think it was New Orleans, to be honest. The Eagles thought Minnesota was going to take him, and they, you know, there's that video that you've probably seen that the Vikings were ecstatic that the Eagles took Jalen Rager. So
Yeah.
it wasn't going to be Minnesota, but I do think it was going to be New Orleans. So he was coming off the board. It wasn't like the Eagles. In other words, what I'm trying to say, it's not like the Eagles were the only team that liked Jalen Rager. A lot of teams like Jalen Rager. And it didn't work out, but he's young enough to where they'll look back to that draft day and say, hey, we really like this kid. We got good coaches. We can turn him around. We can, change the scenery. But I'm talking conditional 6 round pick, maybe. That's they'll be able to trade something. The point is, and you go back to the Zach Ertz trade. Howie was really stubborn on that one. He didn't want to give up Zach Ertz for nothing, and he ended up not getting much for Zach Ertz. He's being stubborn right now with Jalen Rager, and sometimes you got to tap out. Say, all right, change of scenery is probably best for both sides.
Key element in the Zach Ertz trade, Tay Gowan. If he's the other
Yeah, he
starting
might be.
cornerback,
He might be.
we'll see about that. I did not see enough from Tay Gowan, and you didn't either, but because nobody practices during the year.
No.
How do you have any idea whether Tay Gowan can play when you don't practice during the year? Maybe we'll learn something.
And he wasn't here in training camp.
That's what I'm saying. In practice.
Did I tell you, Jody? I said it somewhere. It was probably here. If the Eagles don't bring in Bradbury or another veteran corner, my money's on Tay Gowan over Zach McPherson.
Yeah, you said it here yesterday.
Yeah. And it's just based on athleticism and measurables and things like that. But yeah, I mean, they're just throwing darts with all these young corners.
Right. And maybe one works out, maybe it doesn't. I don't want to risk it. I want James Bradbury. Howie, if you're listening, now we know you're a big Jacob Media YouTube channel fan, that you've done your time here with the guys yesterday here on the channel. Feel free to listen to yours truly. Go get James Bradbury. I can't say whatever it costs because that would be ridiculous. But at least from my guessing aspect of it, it's not going to be outrageous. He's going to get less than a Honey Badger, don't you think, John? Honey Badger got 3 and 13 with, was it 16 or 18 guaranteed? I can't remember which one, but
yeah, I think he'll get a little less than that. I think he wants to get to that 10 million figure, Bradbury, and we'll see how many years. I think ultimately somebody will give him that. I don't think it'll be the Eagles. You
All
know, the
right, so
two.
let me interject here. Are we going to be able to, after the fact, when he signs with someone else in that $10 million range, maybe 2 years, maybe three, get out after two, whatever else, are we going to be able to critique the Eagles and go, they screwed up? They should have done that. If it's a team that's lesser than the Eagles as of right now, and we all have our higher ranking, and at least in the schedule came out yesterday, we're all pretty positive about where the Eagles fall out in the NFC. If it's a team that's less than the Eagles, are we going to be able to critique Howie Roseman and go, how did you not match that offer?
Yeah, that's part of it as well. That's interesting, Jody, because if he signs with Kansas City, like then I think you can lean on, well, he wanted to go to the significant Super Bowl contender, blah, blah, blah. You can lean on that. If he signs with Las Vegas, they're kind of like in the same spot with the Eagles. I mean, they're a good team.
I'll tell you why they're behind the Eagles. They're in
What
the
bad
AFC.
division? Yeah,
Yeah.
division and conference. Yeah, the division is brutal, the AFC West. But they're a good team, is what I'm saying. Probably you're right. They have more obstacles to overcome than the Eagles. So that one would be a little more of a debate. But those are the two teams I've heard, in Indianapolis a little bit as well. Um, and they're kind of in the same boat with the Raiders. They're a good team, not great team. Probably be better with Matt Ryan. But you know, the AFC is a murderer's row at the top. So yeah, it's you could argue you'd rather go to the Eagles in the NFC. And you know, who knows? Other than the Rams and uh, Tampa Bay because Tom's back, Green Bay because of Rodgers, but all those teams have taken significant hits as well. Um, and the Rams, we're just talking about coaching. The Rams have, because everyone thinks Sean McVay is the second coming. We saw it here with the Eagles after the Super Bowl. When everybody starts taking your assistants, that doesn't usually end up well.
All right, let me play it from this angle since we're basically talking about recruiting. I'm back to my baseball roots. Who gets the advantage? A batter who's seen a lot of pitchers before, faced them that many times, but the pitchers know him, as compared to a batter facing a pitcher he's never seen before, and the pitcher having to face a batter which he's never seen before. If you're the batter, which would you prefer? To dig in against the guy that you've played against before, had some success, or would you rather the unknown? You don't know him as well, but he doesn't know you as well either. Which do you think is better? If you were the batter making
Well,
the decision.
I'm going to put one caveat on. I would say the guy I know, but obviously talent. You know, if it's Steve Carlton in his prime or
Right.
Tom
Same
Seaver,
same
yeah,
same pitcher,
amen.
both sides.
Yeah.
The talent
I'd
level on the
rather,
pitchers is the same both sides.
I'd rather the guy I know, and I know how he's going to attack me, than the guy who's just a wild card.
That's why James Bradbury needs to be in the NFC East. He knows what the Commanders receivers are all about. He's gone against them 2 times both of the last 2 years. He knows what the Dallas receivers are all about. He's gone against them 2 times for the last 2 years. He knows what the Giants receivers are all about. He's gone against them in practice. Oh, that's right. They don't practice anymore. So take that back. But he should know the Giant wide receivers a little bit. That's a plus. That's a sales pitch. If you're Howie
and
Roseman,
normally
stay
you
right
see
here
it,
in the NFC East.
you see around the league when you look at other divisions, and it happens in this division as well. You'll see guys from, um, you know, the Rams going to the 49ers and vice versa because they're so familiar with them for playing them twice a year. Yeah, I have no. You're preaching to the choir with Bradbury. I first of all, I like the player. I I I think he's, if anything, he's underrated. I don't go as high as you. I don't think he's a top 10 corner. I
Do me a
put it this way.
favor.
Well,
Do me a
let me
favor then.
finish. He's a top 10 zone corner. I don't think he's a top 10 overall corner because I think its press is more important. Um, but I think he's a really good player. I think he's a huge upgrade, a position of need. And you got to pay for good players. And the Eagles have, proven they will do it. So to me, it comes to evaluation. And I just don't think they look at zone corners and say there's that much of a difference. And by the way, I think they're wrong.
Quick question. How much zone did the Eagles play last year?
A ton.
Ton.
A
Oh,
ton.
okay. So if he's a top 10 in a defense that they play,
And that's why I said he
more
makes
often than not.
sense. And he makes sense. He makes
That's
sense as well.
kind of the point I'm making. Do me a favor. You got the pro football, the ratings,
Yeah.
power rate. You have access. I don't think they break the corners down into zone corners and man to man.
Yeah, they do. He was top 10 in
Do
zone.
they?
I think it was number 9 in zone coverage. But he was not great in man coverage.
Do you have them for multiple years, the grades? Or just this
Yeah.
past year.
Yeah. Well, he was great in 2020. I mean, he was phenomenal. He was a top 10 corner in 2020. Trying to pull it up. Last year was not great for him. He was graded as trying to find him 58th overall. But he was 9th in zone coverage. 2020 he was 7th overall in the entire league, 7 out of 121. So he had a great season.
So he's 1 year removed from being a top 10 corner.
Yeah.
And he was a top 10 in zone, which the Eagles play most of the time anyway.
Yeah. And then before that in Carolina, one of the things, because Dave Gettleman got a lot of crap in New York, and rightfully so. He made a lot of mistakes, but Bradbury wasn't one of them because he wasn't setting the world on fire in Carolina. But he knew him well from there and thought he had potential, and he really took off in 2020. And he was still good as a zone corner last year. And remember, that was a bad football team, so that plays into it as well. The Giants were a bad football team.
They're like the Eagles. They never got to the quarterback either.
Yeah. And I think he's a good player. Like I said, I would have no problem with the Eagles bringing him in. I just don't think they will.
Which I'm a little disappointed by. I won't say perturbed, but disappointed because when you make a move, and I know everybody hates when you tie it to just one move, but the A.J. Brown move was so big and you're paying him so much money, it does slant the way that you look at the football team. That if you want to be part of the we're not ready crowd yet, that John abhors, for the most part I do too, but John's just a little bit more outspoken about it than I am.
We're not ready.
Then you don't get A.J. Brown. As soon as you lay out the money and the draft picks to get A.J. Brown, guess what? You've declared yourself ready. You no longer have the ability to say we're not ready. You as an organization have made a decision. We're in for this year. We really believe we can not only make the playoffs, but win when we get there. Once you do that, then you got to make the corresponding moves thereafter. You got to keep playing in that direction. You can't go, all right, but now we'll back off. We made one big move forward, but now we're backing off. No, you got to keep going forward, and getting James Bradbury is that kind of move.
I think the Eagles' argument would be, and actually I don't think, I know the Eagles' argument would be AJ's 24. James is going to be 29 this summer. And then obviously 30.
How old is Slay?
Slay is over 30. And that's part of it as well. I mean, Darius Slay is not going to play like Darius Slay forever, as he himself has acknowledged.
But how old was Slay when they got him?
Well, yeah, but and remember, Slay, when they got Slay, they tried to go in different directions before they ultimately couldn't get things done, and made the trade. So Slay is 31. He turned 31 on New Year's Day, by the way.
So
His
he was
birthday is
so
January
he's
1st.
29 when they got him.
Yeah. And
okay, so why are we running scared of James Bradbury at 28 going to be 29?
Well, number
when they
one,
did the exact same thing with Slay.
Well, Slay's a better player. I mean, Slay's a top 5 corner in the NFL, and he's been consistently for years. I mean, Slay's a big time press guy. Like, you know me, Jody. I don't think lockdown corners exist.
Right.
And I think Eagles fans don't realize they have as good as it gets as far as press coverage. Darius Slay is as good as it gets in press coverage. Like, he's in the conversation with Jalen Ramsey. And you know, I'm trying to think of other corners.
What's Slay's? Granted, Slay is better than Bradbury. If I made it sound like I was trying to equate the two, I wasn't. I understand Slay's a better player. What's Slay's average salary? And I'm not even talking about the redo for cap purposes. I'm talking about when they got him and redid his contract. How much per year was he making?
I'd have to look it up. I don't.
I bet it's 15, 16.
50. I know it was 50. 3-year deal. 3-year deal for 50 million, 30 million guaranteed.
That's 16 and that's 16 and change per. I'm not saying they should play Bradbury 16 and change per. I'm saying 10, 11, which is 60 some odd percent. Is Bradbury 60% of a player that Slay is? Yeah, I think he is.
Yeah, that's probably fair. But I don't think that's how they would look at it. I mean, bottom line, and they're not the only team in the NFL. The NFL pays generally, and this is why Dave Gettleman got a lot of crap for the Bradbury signing, even though I think it was a success, to be honest. You're not supposed to pay for zone corners. You're supposed to pay for press corners. So, if you look at Ramsey, if you look at Slay, if you look, AJ Terrell's going to get a big deal. Obviously, Trayvon Diggs as a playmaker. Guys like Lattimore, trying to think of the best coverage corners. Denzel Ward, I think, would be in that category. J.C. Jackson just got his money from the Chargers. Those are the guys, I think the league looks at and says, all right, these are the best corners. And that's because of press, And by the way, I think zone is underrated. More teams play zone. If you're going to play zone, why not? This goes back to cover 2 and Tony Dungy, and people will argue today whether, is Rondé Barber a Hall of Famer? And I would argue no, he's not. And why? Because he wasn't a press coverage guy. And other people, and we've had Ira Kaufman on. I think Ira thinks he should be in the Hall of Fame, if I recall. Guy made a ton of plays. I will say that. But, for whatever reason, and I, probably have been pushed into that corner over the years by talking to coaches and scouts, and they just value press coverage corners more.
But then they go out and play zone.
Yeah, it's weird.
They talk up press, but when in doubt, let's get into a zone.
That's a fair point.
I'm with you on Rondé, and I can tell you the reason why. Because I know how good he was. He made the big play against the Eagles, which the Eagle fans will hate him forever for, but he was a damn good player. He just wasn't as good as Eric Allen, who was a press corner, a man-to-man corner.
Perfect example. Man.
And Eric Allen, to me, is more of a Hall of Famer than Rondé Barber, but Rondé, it seems on a national level, gets more acclaim for what he did. And I just thought the Eagles corner was a better corner. All right, we're going to take a quickie time out here, hoping to be joined by our buddy from NBC Sports Philly. Not Barrett Brooks, now TV star that they've made him into. Dave Gonzalo, you catch on TV a lot, but you also read him all the time on NBCSportsPhilly.com. You're going to see him next here on Birds 365.